Hola, hola, hola. So welcome everyone to the next episode of the Amiga Mia Talk Show. I'm really, really excited because now I'm actually talking to the co-founder and director of Gals in Australia. Gals in Australia is the largest network of Latinas and professionals or Latin professionals or professional Latinas across Australia. And I would argue and say probably in the whole APAC region. And I'm really fortunate to have been, collaborating, working, and alongside Alef for many years now. We did a panel a couple of years ago and been close ever since. So thank you so much, Alef, for joining at the Amiga Mia Talk Show. And I'm really excited for our conversation.
No, thank you, Michelle, for having me. This is amazing. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I think when was the first time? Do you remember the first time we actually crossed paths? What was it?
Yeah, I think it was like it was 2022 maybe, or
Yeah.
2023. No, I think it was 2022. And I remember you talked to me about what you were doing at Amiga Mia, but also you share a little bit about your family, and then you also share how like spaces like ours in Australia would have an impact if those spaces existed back then when your parents came to Australia. So yeah, that was the first interaction, and then we participated in the event, in the panel together in 20. I think it was 2023. I'm pretty sure it was 2023. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a couple of years ago, and I guess from my side. So for those who don't know the story, pandemic finished, and I was living in Melbourne. And a lot of people through Amiga Mia were like, "Oh, we really want to hear stories of Latin women who are role models, inspirational, or just great success stories from either a business or community point of view." And you came top of mind. Not only were you recommended, but you also came top of mind, and alongside Cristina Vela, alongside Liliana. Oh, last name. Don't kill me, Liliana.
Yeah.
I always forget your last name. Quiros
Um,
Sanchez,
I'm not sure, but it's the founder of Casa Bonita.
the founder of Casa Bonita. That's right. And then, of course, Dr. Trini Abascal. And very fortunate to have you all at the panel there and to share stories. And I was really grateful that we all came together and had that experience. And yeah, I also got to learn a little bit more about Gals and the Gals ecosystem and everything that you've built. And for those maybe who don't know, they're listening. I know there's people here as well who, listen outside of Melbourne or outside of Australia. What is Gals? Like, what is Gals in Australia all about? What was the reason for starting it?
Yes, thank you. So Gals in Australia is a community of Latin and Hispanic women. And what we do at Gals in Australia is we try to share resources for them to succeed in their careers in Australia. So there's two primary pillars, professional development and personal development. But Gals in Australia was actually born out of frustration, to be honest. And so I came to Melbourne in 2018, sorry, as a student, studying a master's at La Trobe University. And before coming to Australia, when I was doing all my planning and everything, I had a job in Germany, and I also had experience in Mexico. I'm from Mexico.
Wait. You lived in Germany?
I lived in Germany
I
before
didn't know
moving to
this. I've known
Australia.
you for how many years, and I had no idea.
Yeah, so I live actually. So I was working for a company in Mexico, a startup. And then this company was from Poland, but they also had offices in Berlin, Krakow, Mexico, New York, and China, in Shenzhen in China. And so the business development team was in Mexico and Berlin. And so I was promoted to actually train the whole team sales development for the European like countries. So I was for a very short time. I was there for like maybe less than 6 months. It was full on with like lawyers doing all the visa, to get the working visa in Germany, because it's actually really quite difficult to get approved for the visa. So you have to send a lot of documentation and everything. So I was in the process, but also at the same time, my now husband, then my boyfriend, he was like, oh, you should come to Australia. He's Australian. You should come to Australia and, and study here something, or, because he didn't want to move to Germany. So
Wait, rewind. Oh, where did you meet your husband? Like your then boyfriend?
yeah, I met him actually in Europe. I
Okay.
went backpacking. That was 2020. No, that was 2015. So almost 10 years ago. And I was backpacking in Europe, and he was doing an internship in Germany. He's an aerospace engineer, and he was working at the time or doing his internship for Airbus in Germany. And we met at a hostel.
No way. I didn't know this. How exciting.
Yeah, so that was almost 10 years ago. And then in 2017, we started, dating and everything. And then it was like, I came to Australia actually. When I was living in Germany, I came to Australia to visit him and meet his family and, and see the country. And that's when he told me, why don't you move to Australia? And to be honest, I didn't want to, because I thought I had the best time, just experiencing Germany. And that type of opportunities, you don't get it that often, at least like in Mexico, it's not very common. So I was very grateful with that startup for giving me that opportunity and for training people, like all of them were English speakers. So it was like one guy from Ireland, one Canadian, one American, one from the UK, and the Mexican was, providing the training. So I was like very honored. I'm very happy to be part of that, team and be, leading that team. Yeah. So obviously when I decided to come to Australia, it was a big sacrifice for me, but also I was a bit confident that, it's not going to be that hard to find employment, because also my manager in Germany, he gave me this, like recommendation letter, and he also connected directly with clients that we had in Australia. And he was like, hey, Alejandra is going to Melbourne. Like, if you have, a project, just, she's a good resource and etc. And I thought, maybe I'm going to find a job easily. And it wasn't easy, and I couldn't get a job. And then I was studying my master's, and I started to struggle financially, because even when I had money to pay for the master's, obviously there's daily expenses, right? Life is just expensive in Australia. So I started to drain all those savings, and I really was trying to get it into a professional job, but not getting, any success. I didn't get any calls. And then I noticed like it's so different to, like Mexico, and it's just like everything is new to me. And then I started to work in hospitality. I was working in hospitality. I met a lot of women from, migrant women, but a lot of women from the Latin and, Hispanic communities. And they all had this amazing, experience back home. And
this is so you're talking in Melbourne, right? So you moved initially to Melbourne?
To Melbourne. I've been 7 years now, always in Melbourne. Yeah. And so when I met them and I knew their stories as well, it was very similar. It was like, working hospitality or cleaning jobs or retail, having all this experience. And I met women that were doing those jobs for many years now, like, 5-6 years. And they had really good experience back home, but then they started to lose that confidence. And I refused to believe that was going to be my future. I was like, no, I have to, to find a way to get that job. But it's really hard, because everyone was saying, oh, why bother? Like, there's not going to be opportunities. There's no jobs available to us. And of course, it's really hard when you hear all those things. And when you actually see it, you not just hear that, you see it. Yeah, you see everyone else working, cleaning, doing the dishwashing, or like all these dishwashers, or, doing all these jobs that are not qualified, and then they've been doing it for years. So obviously you start to think, this is it. This is going to be as well for me. And I guess after 1 year of like doing hospitality jobs and applying at the same time to roles, I finally landed that first opportunity after I finished it was the last, I was still studying, but it was like the last semester of my degree. And then I was like, okay, I want to share, like the tools that I use, especially like LinkedIn and all the tools that I learned, because I made so many mistakes, and I wanted to share with women from the communities. At that time, I didn't really know many, just the few people I met, in these hospitality jobs and everything. I reached out to a friend, her name is Claudia, and I said, hey, I want to create this community. I want just to share, and she was working as a cleaner. Actually, she's from Colombia. She was working as a cleaner, and she's an engineer. And she said, yes, like, I'm on board, let's start. And then we started this Facebook group without knowing we didn't know anything about Facebook groups. We were part of some Facebook groups, like Mexicanos in Melbourne. She was part of Colombianos in Melbourne, but we didn't know much about how to create a group. We didn't know what to expect. But in 1 week, we were 500 women. And to me,
Wait, what? Sorry, week one, you had 500.
yes, I'm not knowing many
Wow.
people, right? Like Claudia was, I think she had like maybe 6 months in the country, and I was in a country for less than a year, or like a year, no, actually like a year. So yeah, so it was like, okay, people started to talk about this and people started to join. And then we realized this was needed, right? There was a community that it was needed, that we needed this space for professional development. And we started with small workshops in Melbourne. And I remember back then it was really hard because she was a student and it was my first job, right? But I also had to pay for masters and everything. It was really hard to just pay $40 to book, library to do an event, and doing it for free, because we started like doing these events for free. And eventually we started to grow, we started to have more events, and then the pandemic happened. And when the pandemic happened is when we started to grow massively, because then people from other states started to join. So it was like Sydney, New South Wales, even like regional, and we started to have all these influx of new members.
What's the reason behind the name Gals? Like, where I remember a story in one of your events, and you were talking about how originally you thought of potentially calling it Mexicanas in Melbourne. The founder was like, "What? I'm Colombiana. How can you do this?" But
Yeah.
how did you end up landing with with Gals?
So when I told Cloud, like, let's create this group, I said, let's call it Mexicanas in Melbourne. And then she was like, why? Like, I am Colombian. No, we should give another name. And I don't know, it was the first thing I thought. And I think it was on the go when she said no. I was like, why don't we call it Gals in Australia? And she even told me, like, what's Gals? And I was like, oh, it's like for girls. It's like, it's the same. I am sure I explained it so poorly and so badly, but she was like, yeah, I like it. It sounds good. So that's, and then we really wanted to give it the N as in Spanish. I'm not in Australia, so it was like, the little touch of the Spanish.
I look, if we can just highlight that point, because I feel like this is a common thread in the brand of Gals, and in you, and the way that you and Claudia, when she initially was founding it with you, is to staying at the roots, or at the core of it, is the Spanish, it's the Hispanic. I know that's kind of driven a lot of your decisions because it's a Spanish speaking community primarily, but then you also open it up to English um, and potentially other languages, right? But how important is it for you for it to be Spanish-speaking community?
It's really important. To be honest, I think a lot of the content and everything that we share initially everything was in Spanish. In 2022, we had an event, or 2021, I can't remember the year. It was between 2021 and 2022. We had an event in Sydney to celebrate Latinas in tech, because at that time I was also working in tech, and actually most of my career I have worked in tech companies. And that was a pivotal moment because we had a speaker from Brazil. But to me, it was like we are, without wanting to, we sort of excluded Brazil because we've been talking, sharing content, everything in Spanish. And to me, it was like, okay, we need to create more content in Spanish. And then I realized as well, our community in Gals in Australia from Brazil is really small, like really, really small. And the ones that are part of the community are because they also wanted to learn more Spanish, or they lived in Argentina or in Chile or in, other countries in South America. And they wanted to be part of like the broader, like Latin community. So now we do a lot of Spanish, English, and Spanglish and that kind of thing, because we also want to include Brazil. And so, for example, for most of the events where we have that representation, we always do it in English. Like we 100% will do, because that's the common language that now we have. Since Brazil, they speak Portuguese, and Latin America is Spanish. So now we use a common language that is English.
Yeah, so effectively now, where maybe primarily you started as Spanish, now you're moved into like trilingual, so Portuguese, Spanish, and English.
Exactly. We don't do so much in Portuguese. We have to. And I think for me, that's another thing that I want to start doing, is learning a little bit of Portuguese as a few words, right? Because even if it's like a small community for us, is we need to serve them too. right? Like that's what we need. And I think a way to connect with them is through language. Even if I don't learn like perfectly, just to be able to, know a few words, at least to say hello, how are you, and that kind of thing. And and sustain maybe like a short conversation. I think that's that's, to me, is really important, because we also need to serve the Brazilian community, and we try to include them more and more in events that we do, and we actively try to look to include them.
Yeah, I love that. So I do want to kind of go back to a point that I think is very important in our community, because I don't feel like enough people talk about it. Certainly those who are maybe outside of the community. So this could raise a good level of awareness, because I do know a lot of people who listen to me, Amiga Mia, sort of have an interest in the community, but they may not be Latin background themselves. And so we were talking about how a lot of the professionals come here to Australia, but they don't actually land professional jobs. They start in hospitality, in a frontline role, or they might be cleaners. And like my parents, for example, like we bonded over this as well, because my dad, for example, he's an electrical engineer in Chile, but when he came here, he was a taxi driver. And my mum an accountant. And when she came here, she really struggled in general to find a job, and eventually she landed a job in the government, but that was because of another Latina who worked there who helped her with that connection. And so just talking about like that challenge of the Latin community who come here and they work these jobs. Did you still find that it's happening still today? Is it getting better? What are some of the reasons why people may end up landing these roles initially?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different factors that contribute to why we have those jobs. And the biggest one is the language. That's number one. And that is because a lot of people will come with very basic English to come to study English. But then, they start working. And I think a lot of people will start working in cleaning jobs. And that actually won't help improving English, because it's very isolating job. Like you're cleaning, you're just listening to probably just some music, or you don't really interact much with people. So I think that also is a job that does not help you with these skills. Then there's other jobs like, hospitality, that actually you are like customer facing, and then you have to interact a lot more with people. So you start to improve your language. But I think once you have a level of English where you're comfortable with, and then you can communicate, and then you understand, what happens is sometimes, because they spend a lot of time doing especially cleaning jobs, they don't feel comfortable with their English. And it happens all the time. Even when you do have a good English and you do understand, you are self-conscious about your accent, right? And so you are like, in a way, you disapprove of yourself, because it's like, oh, I don't sound Australian, I don't sound like an English speaker. So I think there's a lot of elements, right? But I think number one will be, yes, because of the language skill. But if we then assume like, okay, this person has a very good, level of English, and then they have a good, experience, why do they keep those jobs? And I think it comes down to a lot of other different factors, which is the visa is a big one as well. If you come to Australia as a student, you're not going to be able to work full time. You're going to have rights to work 24 hours per week, which for some companies might be okay, for smaller companies, but for some other companies it's not enough. So they need someone full time. So that's one of the barriers that international students have, that probably other visas don't have, like the working holiday. But then the working holiday visa, they have a different challenge, which is to experience the country. So you have to travel, and then you have to move. So because you have to move so much, it's difficult to land a professional job. So usually people will work for 3 months in Melbourne, then they will move and work for 3 months to, Sydney, and then they'll move to another place, and they will probably end up in, like some regional, to try to then extend their visa.
I actually have a question on that, because this is something I often get asked, but I just don't know enough about this world. With the working holiday visa for the Latin community specifically, is it still the case where after a certain period of time they have to go do the farm work in remote areas? Is that a thing?
That's still, I can't remember how long do you have to stay, but it's to extend your visa, you have to do some farm work. Also, this visa is not available to all of the countries in Latin America. So it's just a few. Like, I know Peru is one of the countries. I know Argentina is another one. But also, it's like you have to be, I think it's up to 30 or 31-year old. So it's not for everyone, this kind of visa, right? But it's also one that holds a lot of, yes, it has benefits because you can work full time, but then no one wants to hire you professionally if you're going to move in 3 months because you have to move, right? So there's all of these different variables. Every person will have different challenges, but it's usually visa, it's usually the language, and then another big one is the network. Sometimes you don't have that network. Like I came to Australia and I had Angus, and but he didn't have a big network or a network that was available to me because he's an aerospace engineer, and also he just finished his degree when I moved here to Australia. So he was starting as well his career, so he didn't know much or anything at all. I felt very lucky because I had him. But there's so many women and, migrants in general that come with no network, no resources, no nothing. They come alone. And that's another challenge, just to start to build your network. And then, there's so many other things like you don't understand, like the resume, how to structure it, or your cover letter, how to apply. You don't know even where to apply, where to find those jobs. Like you have to learn that, LinkedIn exists, Seek exists, all these different tools, but you don't know because you are new. And yes, I think it's a lot of different factors that make it really kind of hard to land that first job. But then I guess as well, like I've seen it again and again and again, it is possible, right? It is very possible. And it's, even if you are a student, because a lot of women from girls, they usually say like, oh, it's not possible because I can only work 24 hours. But I know it's possible because I was also working part-time and with a visa professionally, that first job that I had. And Clau, she also found that professional job, and she is still a student. Clau is no longer with girls in Australia, but she's still a student and she's still working professionally. So it is possible. And like those examples are so many, and it is actually very possible because there's going to be some companies that will hire part-time employees. Of course, there's going to be some other challenges because some of the companies have policies where it's just like, you have to be a citizen or you have to be a PR. But there's, it's not every company it requires that, and so I think it depends. Each case is different, but yeah, language network also as well, your confidence, right? Because it's very important. Sometimes you have everything. You have the language, and do you have the network? You have, now how to navigate the market. Probably you had a previous job as well, but now you don't have the confidence, and that also plays a role. So yeah, so many factors are in play.
Yeah, I think I mentioned to you before, and we discussed before at one of your events how that had my parents, or more specifically my mum, had access to a network or community like Gals during her period when she first migrated. I have no doubt in my mind it would have, eased a lot of her challenges, a lot of the stress that she went through. It would have expedited her going into her profession instead of, years and years and years of just moving around and, the rejection that is faced. And whether we like it or not, me speaking more from my personal experience, but it turns into a bit of an intergenerational, like you carry through that experience. Had my mom maybe had a better experience, maybe it would have more positively influenced my life. And so I look at everything as, well, my mom did the best that she could with what she was given. But I think that you're not only, and this is to quote you, and I thought it was a really great way of framing it, that not only are you helping the existing Latin community, but equally you're helping the generations. I have no doubt many gals have kids that will benefit from them being part of a community like yours, giving them the tools, resources, love, and community to be successful. So speaking of like that, you created a community and then you started to help with the CVs and LinkedIn and the confidence and helping also with the knowledge of visas and with the commonality of language. Then you went into offering like an accelerator, right? Like you kind of like up the ante. So what's the accelerator all about?
Yeah, so the mentoring program that we have is called Gals Tribe. And basically it's a small group, max 10 women. Like this is for women who never had a professional job in Australia and they're looking for that first opportunity, regardless of the visa. Or it could be also someone who started a junior position and now they want to move on to another different role and they just want to learn more. The key element of this program, because to me, like all the tools that we share, like you can actually learn yourself as well. This will help you, with time, because we will provide all the resources that we know that work for you, to optimize your LinkedIn, to be discoverable for, not only apply actively, but also passively start being noticed by people like recruiters, etc. But I think the key element for this program, and when I was designing this program, what I had in mind was like the salary element, because that's one thing that can build up, in your career and have a really bad effect if you don't know.
Sorry to quickly interject, but do you find that a lot of Latinas, they put their salary expectations as really low when they first start? Is that something common that you see?
Very low. And that is because there's also this not knowing the market and what is available, but also one thing that repeats so much, because I always ask them, what's your salary expectation? And they just don't know how to answer to that question. But also when they say, oh, like, I don't have really a salary expectation, I'm just more looking to get into the market regardless of the salary. And I think that's a really bad idea, because, you might get a really, like low sort of like junior job, but also with not a good salary. And also you probably be making a lot less than someone else because you just didn't negotiate. You just didn't know the salary. So I think for me, when I was designing the program, I really wanted for women from my community to be able to say with confidence how much, they want, because they also know the market and they have done the research, and also they know how to answer to those questions. So a big part of the program is the salary expectation bit, and also a salary negotiation that not only helps you when you're looking for a job, but also when you are employed by any employer, that how you can also negotiate a salary increase. So I think for me, when I built this program, that was the key, and I'm super passionate about it, because I think this actually is important, right? Like in Australia, we also have something called superannuation. And superannuation, when you don't negotiate really well your salary and you don't negotiate the superannuation, because it's not like you can change the superannuation, but you can say, yeah, my expectation is between this and that plus superannuation. That will change as well a lot, because it's every financial year it changes, right? So
is it common in let's say in Latin American countries to have this like super contributed by the government? Is that common for all countries?
I don't know for like a lot of countries, but from Mexico, I know like Colombia, they do have something similar. In Mexico, we have something similar that is called Afore. But Afore is like your employer will contribute. And, but the tricky part in Mexico is that for a very long time, Afore has been like something that probably can be taken away from you. For example, my parents, they both worked for many years for pharmaceutical companies. My mom, for 20 years. And my dad, I think he worked for that pharma company for like 10 years. And then when they retired, like the records were gone. And he's like, oh, we don't have those contributions. And so my mom retired with the minimum because those disappear. So, you never know, like it could happen, right? So that happened to my mom. That happened as well to my dad. Whereas in Australia, it's so regulated. It's an industry, right? Like superannuation funds are the industry. Financial industry, and they're so regulated that actually, like, I feel like I can also do extra contributions because I know it's for my retirement, and I know I'm disadvantaged because I arrived in Australia when I was 20. I think I was 28, 29 years old. So I'm behind everyone else that is Australian that started to work at 17, for example, or 16, because I didn't build that. So yeah, so all these topics are really important for us migrants to understand. And also understand, if I'm not going to stay in Australia, how am I going to then claim my superannuation? All that kind of thing. Is like so many different things to know. And I think that the program covers a lot of those essentials. to basically not just, find a job, but also understand many things that is, that are related. And also biggest part of the program was for me, because there's so many services out there that are either free or like you have to pay, but they help you to do your resume. And then you just basically say, yeah, I want to build my resume. And to me, that's great. That's a great service to have. But at the same time, it's not great because you don't know how to do it. And then you're going to be eventually needing another job, and then you will have to pay again, or you will have to go to a program where they do it or provide it for you again. And no one knows your story better than yourself. Like no one knows how to write that resume because no one knows better than you. So to me, it's like really important that you also understand how to write your resume, like what is needed, how to optimize your LinkedIn, and how to write your cover letter, and do it yourself because it's really important. And next time that you apply for a job, you know exactly how to do it. It doesn't matter if it's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years.
Oh, I love that. And I think that's so important for so many different people in the community. So before we go to the next topic, I'm actually interested, like go off topic for a little bit, but tell us, what is it like in the world of gals in Australia, Facebook, in that community? Is there any interesting things that happen outside of, talking about CVs and professional? I can appreciate a lot of the important conversations around visas and confidence and then also professional. But is there any other cool, crazy, fun topics that happen in your community?
Yeah, so because we do have a lot of rules, right? Like in the community, and actually for people, we also try to make it a really safe space for everyone. So if someone is not part of Gals in Australia group, you won't be able to find it. You actually can access only if someone within the group invites you to come to the group. And even with that, we've been able to grow to 14,000 women, right? I think it was like a year we were open. Yeah. And then we started to get like fake profiles and everything like that. So we decided not to. And then now it's like, it's a hidden Facebook group. But there's a lot of conversations in the group. A lot of them will be on professional, like how to find a job, or, like very specific to like biology, or like maybe, I'm a physicist, or I'm, like a psychologist and I need to, find employment or whatever. Like it's a lot on those topics, but there's also a lot of, support within the community. So there's, I don't know, we have everything from, people that are experiencing maybe domestic violence, and we have anonymous posts as well. So that way they feel, they can actually reach out and ask for help. Then sometimes they also share like more personal things around, pregnancy, or maybe like period, or, that kind of thing. They wouldn't feel, comfortable to talk about it in a group with everyone. So the reason why we created Gals in Australia for women wasn't with the intention to exclude men from those conversations, but it was to give women a safe space to discuss these topics that honestly, like, men don't care. They don't care about the period, the kids, because they don't have periods, right? So that kind of thing as well. Or if they're looking for, like a gynecologist or that kind of thing, it's in the group. They feel like a lot more safe to ask. And I think that also it's another purpose of the group, just to also connect women. And yes, it is very, very much on professional development, but it's also as well, like, domestic violence, like some students that sadly have as well gone through like cancer treatment, and then they share their GoFundMe, because a lot of some insurance companies won't cover a lot of the treatment, so there's also a lot of support there. All sorts of topics as well. So it's really safe. Some women as well share, like recently Carolina from she lives in Sydney. She shared a video where she was like just saying like, hey, I was low in iron, and they thought it was like related to my period, but it ended up being something that could lead to colon cancer. So wow. And it's all these things that are really important and that could potentially also save lives, right? Like, go check the doctor if you have a iron deficiency. Don't just go and do blood tests. You ask as well for more, like to do a colonoscopy, to do all these tests as well. So potentially can save lives as well, right? So this I think is the beauty of the community, because it's, like even if you don't know them in person, you can sort of feel connected And I think that's, yeah, I know girls in Australia would do everything, like everything we do is thinking of the community first. And it will always be like that. So to me, it's really important that, girls in Australia keeps that the core of like always thinking about the safety of the community, the privacy of the community. And we're not a non-for-profit. We are registered as a private company, and hopefully in the next year or 2 years we want to become a social enterprise. But to get there we need to have a profit, and currently we're not yet there. But to me, it's like I always think girls in Australia, the moment that it shifts to a business, to me is that's done, because I don't want that. And I did it for a little bit because I wanted to scale girls in Australia, and I really wanted to see, okay, so now we are 10,000, maybe we can just grow a lot more if I go full time with girls in Australia, and I save enough for like a year to be able to do that. It's like as an emergency sort of fund to be able to run girls in Australia. And then it was so stressful. It was really stressful. And because you have to pay your rent, you have to make money, you have to do all of that. And to me, it became that moment where I realized I don't want to do this for money, because it became really heavy kind of burden to me, right? So for me, that was a moment where I was like, I want to go back full time, because I actually enjoy what I do. I work in digital marketing. So it's not like I left my job because I hated what I was doing. It was because I really wanted to scale girls. But to me, that was a moment when I realized girls is my purpose, and it's not for money, and it's not for sale as well. Like, and like I would never trade girls in Australia for money, for a sponsorship or for an opportunity of making money. I wouldn't do it. Like, it has to make sense. And I think that's also something that is not always communicated to the girls, but I think it's something that they kind of sense as well. Like they know like that it's a safest place as well.
Yeah, very commendable of you. I remember that time when you resigned your job to really invest everything in gals. I will always admire you for doing that, because it's good. You have to, I feel like when you're a leader, whether it be community or business, entrepreneurial, or just a leader in any capacity, you have to take like chances and be adventurous, and often risk. I mean, it doesn't have to be high risk, it could be low risk, still risk, right? And you do that for gals, and it shows. And even for me, someone who I'm not inside the community, but I do have a great admiration for it, and I see it from the outside, and all the work that you do for it as well. And I think that it is really courageous of you for what you do. And I just wanted to commend you for that.
Thank you.
And so, speaking of, like, you are going down this adventurous route again with a huge event that is coming up, one called She Rises. And yeah, so talking about being adventurous and trying new things, and talk to me, what is She Rises? First of all, I love the name, very empowering. But yeah, what's this event all about?
Yeah, so She Rises, well, for 5 years now, we've been saying, be seen and celebrated for who you are. And I always, like, if you go to Instagram, that's what you're going to see, be seen and celebrated for who you are. And I always thought, oh yeah, we're doing a great job. And then I realized, actually, like, we've been doing a good job creating community, but we are not really showing that talent outside of our community, right? Like, we are not celebrating, we're not being seen. Truly, we haven't really done that very well. Last year I was like in this moment, my mom, she passed away last year. So to me, she was really proud of girls in Australia. So I was like, I think this is a moment where I need to take girls to the next stage and actually be seen, right? And then I thought, what's the best way to do it? And of course, I've been doing events for a lot of years now, but they're usually like smallish events, like not so small, but the biggest we had was 200 women. But then apart from that, it wasn't really on showing the talent from the Latinas. It was more like a workshop on finance and etc. So I was like, okay, I know as well that there's a stories of struggle, and I know there's some women that have actually taken that route of struggling because of visa, because of language, because of all this, and still got those positions of leadership positions, right? So I think I want to show this to women from the community and to the largest community, not just to girls in Australia, but also to the Australians and the locals and the other migrant people that are in Australia and that they might be hiring and they don't, when they receive a resume with this name that sounds Latino, that probably they don't know is Latino, but doesn't sound like Australian, they might even have these biases and say, I'm not going to reach out to this. I want to show that talent to people. And so I started to do a lot of research on who's there that is holding those positions, like holding those leadership positions. And then I found really interesting people. I found out that, that CEO of Nestle, Oceania, she's from Ecuador. Her name is Sandra.
Well, there you go. I didn't even know that.
I discovered as well that the CFO of the Commonwealth Bank, he is from Nicaragua.
Really?
Yeah. Not the CFO, the CTO, the Nicaragua, CTO of Commonwealth Bank. Then I started to, to find all these different profiles. And I also didn't want to be biased. I wanted to do research because I know so many women that are holding positions, but that I also know them. And I wanted to find people that I don't know because I noticed as well there's a lot of repetition in events. You see the same, like not just in our events, like in general, like in events in general in Australia. So I wanted to see new faces too. I wanted to show the ones that I really, really admire their work, but I also wanted to find those that are, maybe they don't participate in these events, right? So it was like a lot of research, and with this also the ambassadors of the different cities from Girls in Australia, they helped a lot trying to find those profiles. And it was like this really work on like LinkedIn, trying to research, and we ended up with a lot of different profiles, and we basically were not connected to them. And we started this campaign where we were reaching out, hey, we're going to have this event. And we have this massive list of women from everywhere, like Argentina, Brazil, Nicaragua, Ecuador, and all these different places. And we reach out to all of them. And we also reach out to our networks to see if they knew someone, right? Like we all always obviously tried to get Sandra from because she's the CEO of Nestle. We sadly couldn't get a hold of her, but just doing that research and having that massive list of all these women and men as well, because we were like, oh, look at that. He is, the CTO and this person. But also we just, obviously this event is for women. So we wanted to show, and it was impressive to just get that massive list of women killing it in Australia in different areas, from, engineering to like scientists to, ecologists to, I don't know, marketing. So many different like leaders out there that sometimes you never hear about them, right? So I was like, okay, we reach out. Sometimes we didn't get a response. I think it's hard as well. Not a lot of people are always on LinkedIn. So when we got enough responses of people that we thought like, this is amazing what they're doing, some of them reach out to us and said, yes, we want to participate. And we have everything from mid management to CFO, which is the CFO of Cash Rewards. Her name is Leonor, and she's representing Peru. So, it's like, it is incredible. And I think every year is going to be better. Like we hope to do it every year. It's very challenging because we don't have a grant. We don't have any funding. So everything is self-funded. Part of the making events, making this Girls Strike program to get some of the funds, but also is part of my salary too, to be honest, to be able to.
I think we should highlight that though, Eileen. Like, I feel like this is real talk, yeah? Like, maybe a lot of people don't realize how much you've funded. And I think that you're a very humble person. And I think you do everything for the greater good of the community, for girls and for the greater Latin community and for women in general. But, I've known you and we've had conversations, and there's a lot that maybe you don't disclose because you don't feel like you need to, but you do a lot that's self-funded. A lot, plane tickets, hotels, events, food, like when you go, like everything, even paying for other people's tickets, like, that's huge. But it's also like real talk, right? Like it's the reality. Like if you want to be able to host a big event like this and have a maybe a greater impact, it's something that needs to be done. And hopefully just initially, and then eventually in the future, you can be compensated for that.
Yeah, thank you. I think for me, because I tried for almost 2 years to apply for grants for this event, some myself, some others with the beautiful community of Latin Stories Australia, because they are a charity, that you sometimes can apply like together for a grant. And the last time we applied for She Rises, it was together with Latin Stories, and we didn't get the grant. And I was applying for 2 years. So I was like, you know what? And it was slightly different. It was going to be more like a day event, like for the whole day. But obviously, like, I don't have all the resources to pay for a venue for the whole day, so you have to kind of pivot a little bit. But the concept is still the same, right? Like, show those leadership roles, show those leaders in different industries. But yeah, it is, to me, it's because I believe in my community, right? Like, this is 100% something that I believe, and it's a no-brainer. It's really hard because, yes, of course, you have to make this financial decision that could also impact you, because, for example, I'm saving to give a deposit for a house. Part of that is in She Rises. If I believe, and the Gals ambassadors, they believe in this project too, then some of the people will see it too, and then eventually, and this is also the first time that this is done for the Latin community. And this blows my mind, because we've been in Australia for a very long time, like probably not as long as, in the US, but it's the first time that this has been done. And to me, it breaks my heart that not even the government, like, gives you funding for these type of events. And a lot of things, it could be also because of the structure that we have, because we are not a non-for-profit. So I think that's a lot of the challenges that we also have. But I do believe in Gals in Australia. I do believe in the community, and we couldn't find anyone representing Spain. And now the panel is finalized, but we still wanted to call it She Rises, the first Latina and Hispanic, celebration of leadership, because we serve that community. We serve the Latinos, and we serve also the Hispanic community. And I'm sure next year probably we're going to have someone from Spain, that's going to represent all our community. And to me, that's really important to just go and see, like, this is us. And it's really important as well that it was in a place that is, beautiful. That is a venue that is heritage building in Melbourne. It's called the Capitol, and it's a beautiful theater in Melbourne. And I really wanted this event to be in a space where we actually feel, we're part of it, and that we are seen, and that we are celebrated. So that's the whole purpose of the event. And I feel very, very, very passionate about it. And I'm also very grateful with the women that are participating, because they're also giving me, the trust, and they're giving, obviously, Gals in Australia their time, and we value their time, and we value, all the things that they have to do, because they are also, some of them are coming from, outside of Melbourne, so coming from Sydney and, and other places. So to me, this is really a celebration for them, and I really hope that they enjoy that day, and they feel proud that this is the first time that this is done. And and this is going to be some legacy as well. And I hope that, that everyone really celebrates that day, and all the ambassadors are going to come to Melbourne from different places, from Brisbane, from Adelaide, from Sydney. So they're going to come here to celebrate as well the achievements of all these women holding those positions. And we hope that it inspires more people, and we also hope that the Australians, the local, the broader sort of migrant community, gets inspired as well, and they hire as well this type of talent that we are, like, we are great talent.
I love that. I love the fact that you are looking to broaden it beyond the Latin community. Like, I have never seen that before, where you're like looking at celebrating the Latin community and all the beautiful elements to the Latin community, the professionalism, the core nature of who we are, warm, friendly, beautiful people. But then going out to the broader Australian public, I think is different. It's new. It's exciting. And I kind of spoke to you about this before the call, that it's, you operate with such great professionalism, and I think that that's what we need in our community more than ever. Because, not to say that we don't have people in our community who already do that, we do, but you're creating a new event at scale, and so to have this level of sophistication is so it's really nice to see. And I have no doubt there's going to be an amazing night. So for those listening, if you are interested, I'm going to add more information in the show notes, so please feel free to check the show notes. If you are listening and this is already past this event, I encourage you to go to the galsandaustralia.com website.
Yeah, correct. Gals.
Or Gals in Australia Instagram. Is that the handle?
Yeah.
No? Okay, cool. And then just find out, or Gals in Australia.
So on Facebook, they can also find us as Gals in Australia. That's the fan page, and the group is hidden. So it's a bit tricky, but if you know someone who is already part of the group, they can invite you. Just ask them to get invited. They can send you an invitation.
Can they also go to the website and fill out like a contact form or email you?
Yeah, there's a contact form as well. There's we also have it at the bottom of the page.
Nice. I love that. And then kind of just, I guess, to close, Ale, two things. So the first one would be maybe like, it's up to you which order you choose, but a message to like the broader Latin community, or for those who are listening. It could be about anything. It could be about you. It could be just a general message. It could be about gals, whatever you want to do, but just giving a message. And the second one is, what does being Latina in Australia mean to you?
Okay, perfect. So I don't know when this is going to be live, but this is the International Women's Day week. So I guess one message that I want to share is, support as well those community or those projects that are led by women. Even outside of Women's Day, support those projects, because sometimes we feel isolated, and it might be something that you think, I'm not part of the Latina community. I don't, I haven't been to Latin America. I don't know anyone from the Latin American community, but you also support women. Come to these events to learn more. So I would say that, like, support projects that are led by women. And the second question was what it means to be a Latina. Yeah. I think, to be honest, that I discovered in Australia, because before coming to Australia, I was just, someone that exists, in Mexico. And I think I was proud to be Mexican, and I'm still proud to be Mexican, but I didn't talk about it. I wasn't even participating in events for, it's like Latinas at all, because you are part of it. You are, you don't celebrate yourself, or you don't do those things. But then when you move to another country, it's kind of like you feel a bit lost. And if you are in a country for a very long time, you start to feel this weird feeling where you don't feel 100% of the time that you belong here, but you also don't feel like you belong to your country anymore, because things change. Your family, your friends, the country itself, like the politics, everything kind of changes, right? So you are in this kind of limbo. And sometimes it also happens with the language. Sometimes, I don't know, this is really bizarre, but it happens when I try to say something in English that I kind of think, of the word. But then sometimes I kind of even think of the word in Spanish. So it's like you are in this kind of like weird, I don't know, it's like kind of like a weird space. And to me, just being Latina, it means a lot of celebration to me. Like, just, it means that we are also changing, the future generations. And I believe that, like, if I have kids, it's going to be different for them, and they're going to probably have a lot more opportunities in Australia that they would have in Latin America. And I'm not saying like Mexico. I feel like I was very like privileged to have an amazing mom, an amazing family, and amazing friends, and I miss them, all the time. But I feel like my opportunities would be like a lot different to the opportunities that I have in Australia. And Australia, I think another thing that I want to show in this event for She Rises is that these women also had to go through like difficult, probably a lot of resilience and a lot of challenges to get there. But also Australia is welcoming, right? Because they are hired by these companies as well, because they do have diversity and inclusion programs, because they also believe in these, and I also want to show that Australia is a welcoming country. And surely we have a lot of different issues, a lot of different problems in Australia, but it's also a great country, and it's also a great country that gives you opportunities. So to me, being a Latina in Australia is just being able to celebrate, like that cultural, that colors, that richness, that amazing food, and at the same time be able to be in a place where I feel safe. Yeah. I don't know if I,
No, you did. You did it more. You did and so much more. So much. I'm going to do one other one that is not related to any of this stuff, but I just thought about it while you were talking.
Yeah.
So does Angus know any Spanish?
He knows a little bit.
What can he say?
Oh my God. He would say, can I say actually what he says? It's a
Yeah,
bit
yeah.
of a bad word.
That's
So
okay.
when people ask him, like, do you speak Spanish or do you understand Spanish? And he will go and say in this like funny accent, he will say, oh, no, mi español es muy mierda. And then people will laugh, and then that he'll be safe because then they won't ask more. So, but he speaks a few words. He understands a few like words here and there, but not much. Yeah,
not much. Yeah. I love that. Well, there you go. If you're listening and you have a Latin partner, got a phrase that you can use. Well, Ale, thank you so much for your time and, talking to us a little bit about Gals in Australia, talking to us a little bit about She Rises and this amazing upcoming event, or for those listening at a later point, an event that happened in May 2025. And I'm really excited to, continue to follow the journey of Gals and of you as well. And I just want to say thank you for everything. And I really appreciate you being on here.
No, thank you, Michelle. It was fantastic. Thank you so much.